Clay, how are you, buddy?
Hello, boys. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on. We've been telling people little by little here, if they didn't see it, that our good friend Dave Cokin last week put out an update on his health, and a lot of people hadn't known that Dave was battling for over a year fighting cancer. And, he told everyone a very upbeat message, but he said, hey, it's not going well. And I think a lot of people were jarred by it. Dave means a lot to a lot of different people out there. Clay, I wanted you on because you go way back with Dave, and obviously we all work together. What's your recollection of first meeting Cokin? When was it?
It was the Paulie Ayala, Johnny Tapia Part 2 fight at Mandalay Bay. I was with Papa Joe Chevalier, and we were sitting in the media section, and I'd never been to a fight before, and I was way overdressed. And Joe introduces Dave to me, and Dave goes, "Hey, Joe, you better tell your friend that he's overdressed. He's making the rest of us look bad." And that was my first immediate meeting of Dave, and he was true blue. He was always the same ever since then. So it was good to know that he was always consistent.
Yeah, you got to get Dave's sense of humor. You got to get Dave's approach. Dave is an in-your-face guy. He can be brash. He does not hold back at all. I've been talking about him as a radio person, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. How about your experiences working around Dave over the years?
It was always fun because when I first started at Sports Fan with you and everybody, Adam, of course, and Dave Coelho was an intern back then, and he said my first job was to bring Pete Rose and Dave Cokin Tony Romos each day. And what I did, it was Dave in the Daisy Duke shorts and the cowboy boots. And that was like, all right, this is really cool. I love how, Dave is like, pretty serious on the air, but, he has a chance every now and then to be kind of laid back. But then working with him, it was all business. And heaven forbid if a game that he was on went into overtime during the show.
Oh, boy.
It was like there was no more show left. It was just Dave like going, can't believe it. Every game I had goes into overtime. But, he was also a guy that was so cool that he dated girls from Gallery. You know what I mean? Like, I just always, admired the fact that he lived the true Vegas lifestyle and was a sports bettor, a real professional gambler, and that was at a time when that wasn't cool. But to me, that was everything I wanted to be, but could never attain.
Well, don't forget, if a game did go to overtime and he had the underdog, he already counted as a loser. That's losing.
It's always a loss.
No matter what.
Yes. Oh man, we were there. We would try to do shows sometimes, and it would be, if a game went into overtime. One of them was like the Tigers Twins regular season game 163, and it was like we were talking to him and trying to get him involved in the conversation. It was like we were speaking a different language. He didn't care.
Dave is still with us. Dave Cokin, just not in real good health right now, and I don't know. I wanted to ask you because a lot of people have given me a response to the way Dave sent out the message about, hey, things aren't, going well and I might not be here much longer. I thought it was a completely unique way of announcing that.
He was kind of taking a step back a little bit, like about a year ago from his normal coverage, and he kind of alluded to it once in a tweet. I tried to reach out to him, but he never really responded because Dave is a private guy, and he was a guy that just really wanted, to be alone about this, and when the time comes, then I'll let everybody know. And it kind of harkens back to an age when, guys don't spill their private stuff out, and he really didn't. And it's funny now to read his text, or his tweets rather, and he's still on top of every game that he's on, and watching him go into overtime or losing a bet or some guy blows it in the seventh inning. Like, I love the fact that his enthusiasm for life is still there, but also to just be a part of the mix and to have action. It's a really interesting guy. And, it's like when we got a chance to do some of the stuff with him during the shows, we did the old guy triathlon, something that you came up with, where it would be you, Dave, and I against Mitch, Paul, and Seat. And I'm sitting looking at a bowling trophy, a bowling pin, from June 29th, 2012, which Dave really surprised us with the athletic prowess. He actually bowled 120 or 150, and we ended up winning that whole thing, and we still got the trophy.
Yeah, that's one of the things I forget because we had John Hansen on, a former partner from the early 2000s, and John told the story about Dave John wanted to do a different kind of show, and maybe not all sports. And Dave was mostly all sports, and he said, Dave was open to doing it, man. And I kind of forced everyone to participate. When we were talking trash in that old guy triathlon, we were talking trash to the other show, and Dave could have been like, you know what? I'm like 59 or 60 at the time. Like I don't want to do this, and he jumped right in. He was fired up to do it. The guy went out there and he was probably middle of the pack at like 60 years old, hitting a baseball. Right. We did the home run derby, and like he didn't jack one out, but he had a good swing. He's out there. He's like, I'm good.
Oh, I forgot all about that. That's right. We went out to the softball field that was blazing hot, and he was going up against like a lefty or something like that, and he was still like making contact and driving the ball all over the field like a young Tommy Herr. He looked amazing.
Smoking Dave, smoking at the plate. Clay Baker's with us. You know the voice from Raider Nation Radio 920, and Clay's been on shows on our Fox station, our ESPN station, and he knows Dave Cokin as well as anyone. And Dave's not doing well right now, so we're having a lot of Dave's friends and former coworkers on to talk about DC, not only from his gambling exploits and how well-known he is in that world, giving out picks, selling picks, but also I wanted to put it out there because I don't think it's covered enough that Dave is a really good radio guy. He's actually he's a very easy guy to do a show with because essentially you could do just about any sport. He's going to have something to say about it. And I'll repeat it again. When you do a show with Dave Cokin, anyone who's on mic, if you say something he thinks is stupid, he will tell you, and he may call you stupid. And then it is your job, right, Clay, to kind of fight your way out of the corner. And if you can't, oh, well.
Oh, well, because he's going to hold that over you. And tomorrow might be a good day, but for that moment, you were in some sort of Dave Cokin purgatory, where it's like, I'm not going to let you out. I'm not even going to look you in the face anymore because you're wrong. And I just told you why you're wrong. And people would try to get in debates about, when the Royals played the Mets and the Royals were all about bunting guys over. He was like, that's stupid. You're giving up an out. Don't ever do that. Anyone who would try to, even combat him slightly, he would shut them down to the point where they were just completely humbled, and they would just put their head down in silence because they were like, I'm losing this debate, and I'll never talk again. That's what Dave would make you feel that way, but it's only because he was so good and so sound in his approach that he had numbers to back it up, evidence, passion, all the things he would ever ask for in sports radio. He was very good at that, and I'm wondering, how sports betting and radio is now, and I wonder, how his influences were there to kind of, help bring the beginning of, what we know as the modern age of sports betting radio out there, because he was somebody that could not be trifled with. But the fact that he was coming into the radio room or the studio as about as well prepared as anybody could ever be, that's almost unmatched.
Well, and Dave also, he made it. I think he's a great radio guy. And I was actually, I had forgotten, maybe I didn't even know about this, but back at Sports Fan Radio Network, we had Howard Balzer on last week, and Howard was saying that at one point they kind of pulled Dave off the SFR and 5-day-week lineup because the management there was like, we need a professional radio guy. And I'm like, professional radio guy? He's perfectly made for sports talk radio because he can do sports, and he's got this, as John Rabe said, remember John from Sports Fan Radio Network, one of the great characters in radio. And to build on what you said about handicapping part of it, you remember – Dave was doing this before everyone else was doing their podcasts and their shows on sports gambling. The difference is Dave, to get on with Lee Pete back in the day, Dave won. Dave gave out great picks. There were a couple of years where Dave had, 65 and 70% percentages over the course of a season. So this wasn't some phony saying, hey, this is what I do, and then you kind of hide on your results. He produced results. That's how he broke into Las Vegas radio.
He did. In fact, he would go on these amazing runs in college football where it was almost like it was 4 out of 5 every weekend, and it was all legit. And he would be on, satellite radio. He'd be on ProLine. Remember the ProLine show that would run Saturdays and Sundays? The information was always out there. And that Lee Pete show where we're live from the Stardust, and we're going to give out picks and give out the lines. And there was just something really special about somebody that was so dedicated to their craft that it came so naturally to him that, you almost effectively felt like I have my best shot right now by listening to Dave Cokin that I would ever have, just trying to pick on my own. And, they would always have the sports monitor and this and that. But Dave was always true blue. He never hid behind it. In fact, I was like privy to being on one of his mailers, on one of his newsletters, and nobody would take losses harder than him because it was kind of a hit on his identity. He never wanted to lose. He was so ultra competitive. He would try to do everything he could to win because losing was like a hit, like it was like tarnishing, his soul almost. And yeah, we're talking about him, but it's like, in the present day, I still think he probably takes losses pretty hard. He hates to lose.
Absolutely.